In your work, you'll deal with an array of interconnected items of high voltage, low voltage, and mechanical equipment, which altogether comprise the system. The system creates, transmits, and distributes electrical energy, and it stretches from the transformers of wind turbine generators to substations to the connection point with the transmission grid operator. These types of equipment can expose you to a range of dangers which could result in serious injury or death. So, as an Ørsted-trained competent person in charge of a working party or a person performing a task as a member of the working party, you need to be familiar with the equipment and understand how to work safely on or around it. In this module, we will review the basic types of equipment that form the system and why it's absolutely vital to your safety for equipment to be clearly identified and labelled.
Click Next to continue.
The Ørsted electrical safety rules define the system as the items of equipment used separately or in combination in a process associated with the business of the generation, transmission, and distribution of electrical energy. Ørsted has committed itself to ensuring that the types of high voltage, low voltage, and associated mechanical equipment used at its facilities meet the highest standards for good safety performance through the life of the assets until when they are permanently taken out of service.
Click Next to continue.
So, what are the basic types of equipment that Ørsted-trained persons and Ørsted-trained competent persons work on or around at Ørsted wind turbines, substations, and other facilities? Let's take a look at some of the basic equipment. You will often find yourself near a transformer, an item of technical equipment used to either reduce or increase voltage. In other words, it transforms low voltage to high voltage or vice versa. There are many sizes of transformers. Precautions must be taken to ensure safety when you are assigned a task that involves a transformer. Next, let's focus on conductors. The electrical energy we generate needs to travel from the wind turbine generator back to the grid. In other words, get from one place to another. It does this via conductors. These are made up of materials or elements that conduct and transmit electricity. Conductors allow the free movement and flow of electrons. The conductors are found inside of cables, which are made up of strands of conducting materials. In other words, the conductor wires within a cable carry electrical energy along their length. Now let's take a look at insulators and what they do. An insulator is a block of ceramic, glass, or another type of material. Its purpose is to stop and contain the free flow of energy. An insulator is found on the outside of a cable and will also be seen in the form of a post insulator supporting a conductor around the system. At times during your tasks, you may see switchgear, which is switching equipment used in the transmission of electrical energy. Switchgear devices come in various forms, such as disconnect switches and circuit breakers, and they're used to control, protect, and isolate items of equipment that make up the system. Among its functions, switchgear can be used to de-energize electrical equipment and deal with other faults that occur along the system. The system also includes various items of mechanical equipment associated with high and low voltage equipment, such as pumps, generators, and alternators. When work needs to be done on or around mechanical equipment, it has to be cut off from sources of electricity and isolated, and other precautions have to be taken, depending on the type of mechanical equipment involved. There are many variations of the equipment types we've reviewed, so should you have any site-specific questions about equipment, please direct them to the senior authorised person or authorised person for your worksite.
Click Next to continue.
Under Part A of the basic Ørsted electrical safety rules, it is mandatory for high voltage, low voltage, and mechanical equipment to be identifiable and clearly labelled. No exception. The rule states that all work performed on the system shall only be permitted on equipment which are readily identifiable or has fixed to it a means of identification which will remain effective throughout the course of the work. Any permanent and temporary identification installed shall be robust, indelible, and secure. It's the job of the senior authorised person or authorised person to make sure equipment to be worked on is clearly identified and labelled, and it's the job of Ørsted trained persons and Ørsted trained competent persons to pay attention to the identification and labelling. Why do we have this basic safety rule? It is because items of equipment often have components that look the same, or at a work site, there may be separate items of equipment that are similar in appearance. To be safe, you must know whether you're working on a piece of equipment that is disconnected from electrical energy and isolated, or a piece of equipment that may still be live. For example, substations of the open compound type contain many pieces of technical equipment that are identical in make and version. When servicing or repairs are done under a safety document, it's often the case that most of the technical equipment remains live, and only a small part of the substation specific to the safety document is de-energized and earthed. So confusion about which piece of equipment should be worked on could be disastrous and lead to death or injury.
Click Next to continue.